Top 10 video games with sad endings.
Tidus fades away at the end of Final Fantasy X. Final Fantasy X revolves around Tidus and Yuna, a boy seeking a way home after being transported to Spira and a girl seeking the final Aeon in order to defeat the malicious sin that threatens her world. Throughout their journey, they discover that Spira is trapped in a vicious cycle where sin is reborn after the final Aeon is used to vanquish the preceding one. Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons builds up a great bond only to rip it apart at the last minute. Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons has reached unprecedented levels of success since its initial release back in 2013, but it is easy to see why. As the title suggests, the adventure game follows two brothers as they try to save their sick father, and they build up a strong bond through teamwork. The gameplay is built around controlling both players with different sides of the same controller, but co-op was later introduced as an alternative. This brotherly bond is built up to the point where players are incredibly invested, only to have their emotions ripped apart when the older brother Naya is killed right at the end. The player grieves with Nei, but thankfully the journey wasn't for naught as he revives his sick father and the pair can mourn Naya and the mother together.
Max faces a terrible choice in life is strange. Created by Dontnod Entertainment and published by Square Enix, 2015's Life is Strange quickly made a name for itself in the gaming industry with the original game's pivotal, heartbreaking conclusion. Players take control of Max Caulfield as she witnesses her childhood friend Chloe Price being killed after returning to her hometown of Arcadia Bay, Oregon. Ghost of Tsushima ends with an impossible choice over Shimura's fate. Ghost of Tsushima will always be remembered as one of the best PlayStation exclusives of all time with its exceptional gameplay and dramatic storytelling of a samurai era. The player follows Jin Sakai and his journey, but the game's ending presents a heartbreaking choice. Jin has to duel his mentor and father figure Lord Shimura, then choose between killing him or defying samurai code and sparing his life. From the music to the visuals, this moment is highly emotional no matter which path is chosen. But killing Shimura is a tragic way to bring the story to a close, not counting the Iki Island expansion. BioShock Infinite is a great game that needs no introduction. Ken Levine's final work on the BioShock franchise was absolutely masterful, bringing both an emotional core to the story along with the concept of parallel dimensions. The ending of the game is a wild thrill ride with a pretty chilling conclusion. It turns out that Booker DeWitt needs to die for Elizabeth to stop being tormented, which makes for a pretty sad way to say goodbye to one of gaming's most memorable characters. Cyberpunk 2077 is a game that faced numerous controversies upon launch before slowly getting fixed over time. Regardless of its issues, there's no denying that Cyberpunk 2077's narrative is the highlight of this title. Players will form a bond with V and Johnny by the end of this experience, which is why the ending hits so hard. Regardless of what choice players make, the ending will always be accompanied by a tinge of melancholy because of the events that have and will transpire. Supergiant Games are known as masters of their craft, and Transistor proves once again why this studio deserves so much praise. Transistor's mix of real-time and strategic combat makes it a unique gem that more people need to check out, especially if they love Hades. Transistor's story is pretty mysterious, with the titular sword serving as a narrator in this experience. The end of the game sees the protagonist, Red, stab herself with the weapon so that she can live the rest of her days with the spirit inside the transistor. Ori and the Blind Forest is a beautifully presented game with an incredibly compelling narrative, although it's bookended by some tear-jerking scenes. The game begins with the death of the titular character's adoptive mother after a cataclysmic event decimates the forest that they call home. Given the game's primary themes include loss and acceptance, this was something of a necessity and, to the writer's credit, it sets up the remainder of the story perfectly. That doesn't make it any less distressing, though. Alone in the world, and without a sense of purpose, Ori teams up with a light-based being called Sane to restore life to the forest. While on their journey, The pair encounter a giant owl named Kuro whose primary aim is to stop Ori. While Kuro is at first painted as little more than a textbook bad guy, it soon becomes clear that she too has experienced great loss and is acting in the best interests of her unborn child. As the game reaches its climax, Kuro sacrifices herself in order to prevent another catastrophe. Life returns to the forest and Kuro's final egg begins to hatch, but the child will emerge into a world in which it has no one or nothing. We have to say, we did not expect these kinds of feelings from a Halo game. The Halo series always told a good story, but it remained relatively emotionless and impersonal. But that all changed with the brilliant Halo Reach. Players are forced into a dramatic last stand, and it culminates in their eventual defeat and death. The final shot of the game is the player's helmet sitting on a grassy plain, a painful reminder of the sacrifice they made. It's heartbreaking, but also very touching. For a humorous game about an alcoholic, foul-mouthed squirrel, CONKER'S Bad Fur Day really threw us for a loop with its surprisingly dramatic ending. Once he becomes king, CONKER sits on his throne with a frustrated and dejected look on his face, furious at himself for not asking the programmers to bring Barry back to life. He ruminates on enjoying what players have before it's gone while the camera slowly pans away, leaving CONKER depressed, morose, and guilty. We thought this was a comedy. It's not the ending itself that is so heartbreaking, but the final half hour or so of the game. Everything goes to hell once players reach the hospital, as players learn of Ellie's impending death, rush to rescue her, and escort her out of the hospital in a blaze of bullets and morose music. Yes, the ending proper is also very sad, as players can see Ellie's trust for Joel disintegrate in a second. It's certainly not as heartbreaking as some of the others on this list, but it's not very happy either. Thank you for joining me on this emotional journey through some of the most heart-wrenching video game endings. From the haunting revelations in BioShock Infinite to the bittersweet memories of lost companions in Assassin's Creed 4, Black Flag, these games have left a lasting impact on players worldwide. Remember, it's okay to shed a tear or two. After all, that's the power of storytelling in gaming. Until next time, stay strong, gamers.